The coin in the photos is an Australian 20-cent coin dated 2004. On one side, there is a platypus swimming, with the number 20 placed above its head. On the other side, there is a portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, with the word Elizabeth II written on the left side of the coin and Australia 2004 written on the right side. This looks like a very ordinary, everyday coin, the kind of coin people use to buy a small snack or put in a parking meter. But behind this small piece of metal is a huge story. It is a story about a country changing its entire money system overnight. A story about a talented young artist who won a national competition. A story about one of the strangest animals on Earth. And a story about a queen whose face appeared on money for over 70 years. In this article, we will go through the whole story in very easy English, step by step, so that anyone can understand it, even if English is not your first language. We will cover the old British-style system. For a very long time, from the earliest days of British settlement in Australia, the country used the same kind of money as Britain. This system was based on pounds, shillings, pence. This might sound simple, but the way the units connected to each other was actually quite complicated. 1 pound, $20 shillings, 1 shilling, $12 pence. So, 1 pound were 240 pence. This meant that if you wanted to add up prices, you could not simply use normal base 10 math like adding 1 plus 1 or 2. You had to remember special conversion rules. For example, if something cost 3 shillings and 8 pence and another thing cost 2 shillings and 9 pence, working out the total required special training, not simple decimal addition. Children in Australian schools spent real classroom time learning these conversions. Shopkeepers had to be very careful with change. Even adults sometimes made mistakes. This was the normal way of life for generations, and most people did not think much about it, because it was simply how money worked. Other coins before 1966, before the 20-cent coin existed, Australia used coins like the penny and halfpenny, small copper coins, the 3-pence, a tiny silver coin, the 6-pence, the shilling, the florin, worth 2 shillings, and this is the coin that the future 20-cent coin would directly replace. The crown, a larger coin, worth 5 shillings, mostly for special occasions. These coins had different sizes, different metals, and different pictures. Many of them featured native Australian animals or symbols as well, following a similar idea to what would later be used on the decimal coins. Why people wanted a change by the 1950s and 1960s, more and more countries around the world were switching to decimal currency systems, money based on units of 10 and 100, which are much easier to calculate. Countries like the United States, Canada, and many others already had simple systems, 100 cents or $1. Business leaders, teachers, bankers, and government officials in Australia increasingly felt that the old pound shillings pence system was confusing for children learning math, slow for shopkeepers and cashiers, old-fashioned compared to other modern countries. A barrier to trade, since businesses dealing with countries using decimal money had to constantly convert between systems. Because of these pressures, the Australian government eventually decided to act. The Decimal Currency Committee in 1959, the Australian government set up a Decimal Currency Committee to formally study whether Australia should switch to a decimal money system, and if so, how it should be done. After careful study over several years, the committee strongly recommended that Australia should move to a decimal system. In 1963, the government officially announced that Australia would indeed switch to decimal currency. A target date was set, 14th of February 1966. What should the new currency be called? Interestingly, before settling on the name dollar, the Australian government seriously considered many other possible names for the new currency unit. Some names that were suggested and discussed included Royal Australase Dinkum Boomer. Some of these names sound quite funny today, but they were genuinely proposed by government committees and even publicly promoted for a short period. Eventually, however, the government settled on the simpler and more internationally recognizable name, the Australian dollar, divided into 100 cents, following the same basic structure as the US dollar, Canadian dollar, and other decimal currencies. Preparing the public switching an entire country's money system is an enormous logistical task. It is not just about printing new coins and notes. It also means retraining bank staff, relabeling prices in every single shop, updating vending machines, public telephones and parking meters educating the entire population, including children, elderly people, and business owners, on how the new money worked. To help with this huge public education task, the government launched a nationwide campaign. Perhaps the most famous part of this campaign was a catchy jingle song played repeatedly on radio and television in the lead-up to the change. The jingle helped explain in a simple and memorable way how many cents made up a dollar, and how old prices would convert to new prices. Newspapers printed conversion charts. Posters were placed in banks and shops. Government pamphlets were mailed to households. The goal was simple: make sure that on the day of the changeover, ordinary people would not be confused or cheated when using their money. February 1966, Decimal Day, also called C-Day. Finally, the big day arrived. On 14th of February 1966, Australia officially retired its old pounds, shillings, and pence and introduced the brand new Australian dollar and cent system. On this single day, one old Australian pound became 2 new Australian dollars, 1 old shilling became 10 new cents. New coins were introduced in denominations of 1C, 2C, 5C, 10C, 20C, and 50C. New paper banknotes were introduced in $1, $2 tender, and $20 denominations, with more added later, because the old shilling was worth 10 new cents, and the old florin, 2 shillings, was worth 20 new cents. The new 20-cent coin was created specifically to directly replace the old florin coin in daily use. To make the transition even smoother, the Royal Australian Mint deliberately designed the new 20-cent coin to be almost exactly the same size and weight as the old florin. This clever decision meant that machines built to accept the old florin, such as vending machines, payphones, and parking meters, could often continue working with the new 20-cent coin without needing expensive replacement parts. Nationwide search for designs. The Australian government wanted the new decimal coins to look proudly Australian, not just a copy of British designs. To achieve this, an open design competition was announced, inviting Australian artists, sculptors, and designers to submit their ideas for the reverse, back side of the new coins. Many entries were submitted. The government wanted designs that would represent Australia's unique national identity, feature native Australian plants, animals, or symbols, be simple and clear enough to be sculpted small onto a coin, look elegant, and last for many decades of use. The winning designer. Dr. Stuart Devlin. The competition was won by a talented young man named Stuart Devlin, who was born in Geelong, Victoria in 1931. At the time he entered the competition, around 1963, Devlin was working in Melbourne. He was trained as a goldsmith and silversmith, meaning his professional skill was crafting fine, detailed metal objects such as jewelry, trophies, and ceremonial items. This background in fine metalwork made him perfectly suited to design coins, since coin designs must be extremely small, precise, and detailed while still being clear enough to recognize at a glance. Devlin's winning designs became the reverse images for Australia's very first full set of decimal coins. Coin reverse design: Senta feather-tailed glider, A small gliding possum, to Sente frilled neck lizard, Senten echidna, spiny anteater, 10, Sente lyrebird, 20, Sente swimming, platypus, 50 cent. The Australian coat of arms. Each design captured a different piece of Australia's unique natural world, giving the new currency a strong sense of national pride and identity, right from the very first day of decimal currency. Devlin's later career. Stuart Devlin's success with the decimal coins launched an incredible career. He later moved to England and became famous internationally as a goldsmith and silversmith. Some highlights of his later career include designing coins for other Commonwealth countries as well, creating the coin designs for the Sydney 2000 Olympic Games coin series, being appointed as a goldsmith to the British royal family in a formal royal warrant capacity, receiving Australian honours for his services to design, including being made a Companion of the Order of Australia. A.C. Stuart Devlin passed away in 2018, but his platypus design remains in daily use on Australian coins even today, meaning his artwork has now been circulating for roughly 60 years, making it one of the longest continuously used coin designs in the world. The hidden signature. If you look extremely closely at the 20-cent coin, near the platypus's front paw, around where the water swirls are carved, you can find two tiny letters, SD. These are Stuart Devlin's initials, hidden as a small artist's signature within the design itself. A lovely little detail most people never notice in their daily lives. One of the world's strangest animals, Stuart Devlin chose the platypus for the 20-cent coin because it is one of the most unusual, unique, and genuinely Australian animals on the entire planet. To understand why this animal was such a perfect symbol, it helps to know more about the platypus itself. Basic platypus facts. The platypus is found naturally only in eastern Australia and Tasmania, in rivers, streams, and freshwater lakes. It is a mammal, meaning it has fur and feeds its babies with milk. But astonishingly, it is one of only a handful of mammals in the entire world that lays eggs instead of giving birth to live young. This rare group of egg-laying mammals is called monotremes, and the platypus is one of its most famous members, along with the echidna, which also appears on Australian coins. It has a duck-like bill, which is soft and rubbery unlike a hard duck beak. The bill is packed with special sensors. It has webbed feet, perfect for swimming, and strong claws for digging burrows in riverbanks. It has a flat, wide tail similar to a beaver's tail, used for storing fat and helping with swimming. Male platypuses have a venomous spur on their back legs, making the platypus one of the very few venomous mammals in the world. This venom is not deadly to humans but can cause severe pain. Platypuses hunt underwater with their eyes, ears, and nose all closed. Instead, they use their bill to detect the tiny electrical signals produced by the muscles of small creatures like shrimp and insect larvae hiding in the riverbed. This ability is called electroreception, and it is extremely rare among mammals. Platypuses are shy, mostly active at dawn and dusk, twilight hours, and can be difficult to spot in the wild even in areas where they live. Why this made the platypus a great coin symbol? Because the platypus is found only in Australia, biologically bizarre and world-famous for its strangeness. Instantly recognizable even in a simple line drawing, it was an excellent choice for a brand new national coin meant to represent Australian identity to the world. Even today, more than half a century later, the platypus design remains an iconic and much-loved part of Australian coinage, and many Australians feel a strong sense of nostalgia and pride when they see it. Conservation note: in recent years, platypus populations in parts of Australia have faced pressure from habitat loss, drought, and river pollution, leading to increased conservation efforts to protect their remaining wild habitats. While this modern conservation story is separate from the coin's history, it adds another layer of importance to the little swimming animal depicted on your everyday change. Size, weight, and metal: the Australian 20-cent coin has remained almost exactly the same physical size since 1966. Diameter, approximately 28.5 mm. Thickness, approximately 2.5 mm. Weight, approximately 11.3 grams. Shape, round edge. Milled, meaning it has small grooved ridges running around the rim, rather than being smooth. Metal composition: 75% copper and 25% nickel, an alloy commonly known as cupro-nickel. This copper-nickel mixture is what gives the coin its silvery, slightly gray-white color, even though there is no actual silver used in the coin at all. Cupro-nickel is popular for coins worldwide because it is durable and resistant to corrosion, non-magnetic in most standard forms, affordable compared to precious metals, able to hold fine design detail, well when struck. How coins are actually made: minting process. Coins like this one go through several major steps at the mint before they ever reach your pocket. Metal preparation. Large sheets or coils of the cupro-nickel alloy are prepared to the correct thickness. Blanking. Round blank discs, called blanks or planchets, are punched out of the metal sheet. These are plain coin-sized circles with no design yet. Annealing. The blanks are heated and then cooled in a controlled way, which softens the metal and makes it easier to stamp a clear design onto it. Edge milling. The blanks pass through a machine that presses the grooved, milled pattern onto the coin's edge. Striking. The blank is placed between two hardened steel dies, one carved with the platypus design and one carved with the queen's portrait design. A powerful press then stamps both designs onto the coin at the same time, using extremely high pressure, in a fraction of a second. Quality inspection. Finished coins are inspected for defects, weighed, and checked for correct design accuracy. Bagging and distribution. Approved coins are counted, bagged, and sent out to banks, where they eventually reach shops, cash registers, and people's pockets. This entire process is designed to produce millions of nearly identical coins, all struck to very precise government standards. Why the Queen appears on Australian coins. Australia is what is called a constitutional monarchy. This means that while Australia governs itself independently through its own elected parliament and prime minister, it also formally recognizes the King or Queen of the United Kingdom as its ceremonial head of state, a tradition dating back to British colonial times. Because of this long-standing tradition, the reigning monarch's portrait has appeared on official Australian coins since long before decimalisation, and this practice simply continued onto the new decimal coins introduced in 1966. In 1966, the monarch was Queen Elizabeth II, who had already been queen since 1952. Her portrait was therefore placed on the obverse, heads side of the brand new 20-cent coin and every other decimal coin, right from decimal day itself. Portrait number 1, Arnold Machin, 1966-1984. The very first portrait used on Australian decimal coins was created by British sculptor Arnold Machin. This portrait shows a relatively young Queen Elizabeth II, and it was used consistently across Australian coins from 1966 until 1984. Portrait number 2, Raphael Makhlouf, 1985-1998. In 1985, the portrait was updated to a new design created by sculptor Raphael Makhlouf. This version presented a slightly more stylized, idealized image of the Queen, and continued in use until 1998. Portrait number 3, Ian Rank Broadley, 1999-2019. From 1999 onward, a new, more realistic and mature portrait was introduced, sculpted by Ian Rank Broadley. This portrait shows the Queen wearing the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara, an actual tiara belonging to the royal family's collection. Coins using this portrait often carry the tiny initials IRB somewhere near the base of the Queen's neck. As a small sculptor's signature, this is the exact portrait used on your 2004 coin. Since 2004 falls right in the middle of the years this design was used, 1999-2019. Portrait number 4, Jody Clark, 2019-2023. The fourth and final Queen Elizabeth II portrait used on Australian coins was created by British sculptor Jody Clark, introduced from 2019, and it continued to be used right up until the Queen's passing and slightly beyond, as existing coin stock and designs transitioned. After the Queen Elizabeth II passed away in September 2022, after a reign of over 70 years, the longest reign of any monarch in British and Australian history, her son ascended to the throne as King Charles III. Starting from around 2023-2024, new Australian coins began featuring a portrait of King Charles III, created by Australian artist Dan Thorne, marking a historic changeover in Australian coin design. Coins featuring Queen Elizabeth II, like your 2004 coin, remain completely legal and valid to use, since old coins are never withdrawn from circulation simply because the monarch has changed. While the standard 20-cent coin has always featured the swimming platypus, Australia has released a number of special, limited-run commemorative versions over the decades, usually to mark important national anniversaries or events. A few well-known examples include 1995 United Nations 20-cent coin. This was the very first commemorative, special occasion, 20-cent coin ever released into everyday circulation in Australia, created to celebrate 50 years of the United Nations. 2005, 60th anniversary of the end of World War II. This design was inspired by a real photograph from the Australian War Memorials collection, showing a returning soldier reuniting with his family. 2012, Donald Bradman commemorative coin, released to celebrate the life and cricketing achievements of Sir Donald Bradman, one of Australia's most famous sportsmen. 2016, 50th anniversary of decimal currency, a special coin celebrating half a century since the historic 1966 changeover to dollars and cents, sometimes paired with the classic platypus alongside special commemorative markings. Student design competition coins. On some occasions, The Royal Australian Mint has run competitions allowing school students from different states and territories to design commemorative coin faces, with winning entries actually minted into real circulating coins. Aside from these official commemorative issues, collectors also search for coins with unusual mint errors, such as off-center strikes, double strikes, clipped edges, or the well-known 1966 wavy baseline variety, which refers to a small but noticeable difference in how the lettering was originally engraved in that very first year of production. Since your coin is a standard 2004 Platypus design, it is a common everyday coin rather than a rare commemorative piece. But it remains a genuine and meaningful artifact of nearly 6 decades of unbroken Australian coin history.